Hello everyone. In this video I scuba dive a beautiful coral reef called East Flower Garden Banks around 120 miles off of the coast of Texas in the Gulf of Mexico. And with that, let's jump in. And so begins the fourth dive of this day here in the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, great barracuda, just as we're descending down on the coral reef, about 70 feet below us. You can just see it. Time for a quick selfie as I head on down right here in the relatively warm water. It was 79 at the surface and only dropped down to 78 at the bottom, but I was in a dry suit, as you can see. Oh, so where are we? As you can see in the Gulf of Mexico, if we zoom in, we can see where the Flower Garden Sanctuary is. We left from Freeport, Texas, right here, the previous night. Zoom in a little bit more, we can see where the MV Fling, the boat we were staying on, was moored up. We boarded around 7 p.m. the previous night, left around 9 p.m. and arrived at the Flower Gardens after traveling out here after about 6 a.m. the next day. So you can see about 120 miles or so overnight. Here we are, arrived at the bottom, 65 feet or so. Put my flashlight on, a big blue VL 4200p, in case anyone's interested. It's 4200 lumen light. Has a lot of light, even though it was late afternoon at this time. The fourth dive of the day. It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We got in the water here, but the extra light, even at the depth we were at here, which was a maximum of 74 feet at this point on this part of the reef. So this is in the East Flower Garden Banks of the Flower Garden Sanctuary. We had previously done 2 dives on the West Flower Garden Banks. Those are the first 2 of the day, followed by a rig dive just outside of the sanctuary. And then while we're having a 2-hour surface interval between each of those, 62 feet deep, 7 minutes in, then we moored up on here, on the East Flower Garden Bank. So slightly shallower coral reef here, but absolutely beautiful. So many coral on this reef, and so many fish. So we were on the lookout, but we didn't see a turtle that we know lives here. I've dived this particular reef twice before. Beautiful reef right there, small one. That's a brain coral, a small one. Polyps feeding. Yes, this was the third time I've dived this reef. I've dived it twice the previous year, the first time this year. I'm going again later in the year. Not a huge brain coral right there. So beautiful. I found them just very, very fascinating, particularly the huge ones like that. Those live up to 900 years. A single organism right there on the rock. Polyps in those holes where that coral feeds from. I found it so beautiful. That's why I enjoy getting as close as I safely could. Can't touch the corals. They're very fragile. I got as close as it was safe to in order to try and capture their beauty here. So recorded in 4K, well actually UHD, little below 4K, 60 frames a second. So hopefully you can enjoy this perhaps on a big screen TV to get the most out of it. Recorded using a GoPro 11 and a GoPro 10. Somebody hiding down in the corals right there. Couldn't quite see. Is that a parrotfish? Can't quite see. I was in a dry suit for this dive, as you saw from the selfie jumping in. In fact, for this entire trip, I wore a dry suit. The temperature of the water, like I say, a little warmer on this reef than it had been on the West Flower Gardens earlier in the day, where it dropped down to 76 at the bottom. It was 78 here. Still needing a relatively thick wetsuit to stay warm for the duration. We were down there 45 minutes or so. This was a 46-minute dive, and so necessary to stay warm. So ordinarily perhaps a 5mm wetsuit, if I was wearing a wetsuit, would be what I would feel comfortable in for that duration of time in this temperatures. A dry suit even better. Didn't need to wear too much underneath it. The manufacturer of my dry suit is waterproof, and they make some undergarments called Body X, relatively thin but warm undergarments. Not too bulky, not bulky at all in fact, the Body X ones. So just right for these temperatures underneath that dry suit, which is a trilaminate dry suit, so offers no warmth at all, but very flexible and thin, quite tough. So I'm reliant on my undergarments for warmth in these temperatures. Some other divers from our boat also enjoying the reef right there on this trip, which was a 3-day trip over Memorial Day weekend 2023. There were around 30 divers on board, so the boat was full. It's pretty much the maximum that MV Fling can hold on one trip. And we stayed overnight, like I say, on the first night, and did 5 dives on the first day, this being the 4th of those dives on that first dive, on that first day. This was also in preparation for doing a night dive. We did this dive and had a good explore around, got very familiar. You can see in a little bit there is a sandy area in the middle, and that's where a line laid out by the dive masters. You saw Erin there when I jumped off the boat. He was one of the dive masters, Erin, and John was the other on this particular trip. Both top-notch dive masters, very, very skilled, very, very knowledgeable. They were really, really great. In the event, they had laid down a reel from where we moored up to this sandy patch right here, where we hoped but did not find on this trip the turtle that I mentioned. I've been here before. I have seen the turtle, sea turtle, quite a large one, who lives here. We found out later when we surfaced that the turtle, she had been actually on the surface while we were here at the bottom. But you can see my buddy Ken there. He is looking for that turtle. That was what he did on this dive. We knew she lived here. Little did we know, like I say, that she was actually at the surface by the boat while we were on the bottom looking for her. No matter. So much beautiful coral to enjoy. I mean, I find that stunning, that brain coral right there. And the polyps I find fascinating. As I get close, they pop in. And you can see different types of coral. There's a star coral down there that has a war, it seems, on the rocks the corals have chosen for their home. At the top of this formation here in the middle of the Gulf, thousands of years ago, vying for space. You can see that's the same coral but different organisms. And there's a bearded fireworm busy crawling in amongst the rocks. Nasty stings, those barbs on bare skin if you let them touch you. So I didn't. So continuing to explore the sandy patch in the middle of this area. See who's lived there. More beautiful star coral on the left there. sequence of events on this day. Like I say, this is the fourth dive. We woke up at around 6 o'clock with knocks on our bunks, and got up, and there was some light food, so a continental breakfast laid out for us to get us going. And we jumped in the water, first dive 8 o'clock for 45 minutes or so for most of us. More beautiful coral there. And then surfaced to a nice big hot breakfast to begin our 2-hour interval. So many of us, including myself, ate and then napped for our second dive, which was also in the West Flower Gardens. And then we came up and then had a huge lunch, followed by another nap. I napped in the sun on that particular day. It was a beautiful day in May. It was in the 70s, below 80s, and gorgeous weather on this particular trip, so we got lucky. Caught a nap on the top deck for our 2-hour surface interval before diving an oil rig, like I say, which was close by. In the active oil rig, there were people on it, but it was safe to dive, so we dived in 360 feet of water, but we stayed in the first 50 to 60 feet or so, and it was swarming with life. Very, very beautiful star coral. Look at that. I find these very, very pretty. Hopefully it comes out in the video as beautiful as it looked in person. 2 corals vying for, you can see where it looks like the star coral has beaten off some of the brain coral there. I was marveling at, you see the scars of where the brain coral has receded at the advance of the star coral. Coral wars going on for hundreds of years. And so after a late lunch, a lovely lunch, and then a nap and a rig dive, and then another 2-hour surface interval, and we moved over here to the East Flower Garden banks. We jumped in here for, like I say, the last 2 dives of this particular day, this being the penultimate one. Light was still nice and bright, as I think you can see, but I still benefited from my flashlight here. Flashlight brings out all of the colours of both the coral and the fish much better. The reds are removed by the water above us. I have commentated a little bit. I've bumped the reds up in this video to try and help with that problem. Some divers have filters over their cameras, but I do a little post-editing. It can mean that the light from my flashlight looks a little red because of the boost in red across the whole frame. Beautiful green coral on there on the left. So really at this point we had, like I say, followed that line, laid down that after we moored up while we were on our service interval by the dive masters, which was that orange string you saw from a reel that was temporarily laid to help us find our way to this sandy patch from where we moored up, because the coral does us all look it's very similar, so it's very easy to lose your bearings and get lost here. So that orange reel was a guide to the sandy patch, and so here we got to the sandy patch and then just really circled it to enjoy all the life and coral that was living among it. I found the little polyps fascinating. Where the coral feeds during the day on passing floating food. These coral reproduce once per year at night. 1 or 2 nights of each year. And the previous time I'd been out here was in fact to see that. Just get my finger close. Not too close, but oh, there he goes. I was about 2 inches from that. Again, being very careful not to touch anything. These corals are very, very delicate. It was moderately challenging, particularly in my dry suit, to maintain proper buoyancy and hold the camera without waving around too much. That's my buddy Ken. Always close by. You too, wearing a dry suit. There was one other member actually of the group wearing a dry suit. Oh. Will they go down and down and down? There they go. Very cute. So much beautiful coral. You can see it's just so alive. Easy to tell. I think that's parrotfish. Easy to tell the coral that is not alive. It leaves the skeleton left on the rock. Most of these are very much alive. And very pretty for it. You can see the visibility here in the Gulf of Mexico is 100 feet easily. Very, very clear waters. No current either. It's an absolutely wonderful dive. Very, very good. I shall certainly be back. Just a huge brain coral there. And hundreds of years old. That one didn't want to go down. A lot of life in amongst all of these corals, as I hope you can see. Hopefully it comes out in the video. So many fish. A dozen or more varieties. An eel. We'll see an eel a bit later. Recognize that one. It's a Redband Parrotfish. Saw a number of those. So a lot of everything, really. Except for the turtle we were looking for. But no matter, we'll just have to go back. So, 72 feet down, 18 minutes in. Started with 3,000 psi. Over 2,000 left there, so plenty of air remaining. The air incidentally I was breathing on this one was nitrox, 30%, made on the boat. Nitrox is a combination of regular air and additional oxygen to enable longer dives. It also, for me personally, those guys, I wasn't sure who those were. If anyone knows what that fish was, please put it in the comments, because there's another one. I do not know what those are, and I couldn't identify them. Main event, yes, as I was saying, 30% nitrox, which means that regular air with additional oxygen added to it to take it from the usual 21%, that's the air we breathe normally, up to 30% oxygen. In my case, like I was saying, it makes me less sleepy. Diving makes me sleepy anyway. It's the nitrogen that you absorb naturally. Doesn't affect everyone the same way, but in my case, it makes me very, very sleepy. So the increased oxygen of nitrox helps reduce how sleepy I feel. Now that's okay. I mean, I have a nice nap between dives anyway, but a little more sleepy than I would want with repeated diving, not on nitrox. Most of the folks on the boat were in fact also on nitrox. Just a couple people diving just normal air. All made on the boat, as I say, once we surfaced during our surface interval. A change of cameras there. So, I mentioned I recorded this with a GoPro 11, and that was the 11. And now onto a GoPro 10, which I also had with me. Because in case anyone's interested, the GoPro 11, when recording continuously at 60 frames a second in UHD, as I have been here, overheats after around 22 minutes of continuous videoing. So overheats and shuts down. So rather than wait for it and miss something, I just carry a second camera. So in my case, this is now a GoPro 10, but set to the same settings as the GoPro 11. The only difference is the stabilization is set differently, and the GoPro 11 is in 10-bit color, so there's a wider color range. Let me know if you notice the difference. I'm actually checking on my air there, still 1600 psi out of the 3000 that I started with. I came up with around 800 on this dive, which is exactly where I wanted to be. But at this point in the dive, plenty of it left. Also, you can't see it because I left the camera facing forward, but I was checking in with my buddy Ken periodically to see how his air was doing. And we return up the line as soon as one of us gets to around 1000 psi. He's adorable. Okay, I'm not sure what he is. If anyone knows, please put a comment. Okay, so at this point, just doing slow circuits of the sandy patch, enjoying the residence and the beauty and health of all the coral. Trying to have a little peer under the coral, see who's hiding under there. There certainly were lots of critters hiding, but it's hard to get too close to them whilst remaining a safe distance from the fragile coral. You can just see the orange line leading back to the buoy where we moored. In the background there. Beautiful star coral. Star coral. And a tiger grouper hiding in it. Green coral right there. The lone brain coral amongst all the green coral. As I was saying earlier, these corals spawn once a year on a relatively predictable night, and the MV Fling has a trip each year, to a 4-day trip, in fact, to witness that on a night dive. It's always at night. Coral release eggs, and it's quite the sight, quite a bucket list item for many folks, particularly as it happens only once a year for all of these coral and at the same time. Quite a sight to see, and one I saw last time I was out here in August of the previous year. again, corals fighting for that rock. You can see the scar of the war between them. Like I was saying, this is a 3-day trip, and the penultimate dive of the first day. The second day was in a different spot. We stayed overnight at this particular reef, in fact, where we'd moored on the East Flower Garden banks. Buoy number 4, in fact. We moved to a different buoy in the morning. Buoy number 3, also on East Flower Garden banks for the second day. So we did 2 more dives on this reef, but on a different buoy. So we got to explore a different part of this same reef. That was the first 2 dives of the second day, and then we moved in the afternoon onto a different reef altogether, a different part of the Flower Gardens Reserve called Stetson Bank, where we did 4 dives. 2, one like this one towards the end of the second day, and then a night dive on Stetson Bank. Also a reef, but very different rock formations. And a lot. It was much easier to see the life because of the rock formations on Stetson Bank. That was some particularly fabulous dives on Stetson. This trip, incidentally, was organised by one of the scuba diving clubs in Houston. I'm a member of 2. The Bay Area Divers and the Central Houston Underwater Mariners, and CHUM. And this trip was organised by CHUM. Had around 7 or 8 of us, I think. Had all the members in the club who joined us on this one. Out of the 30 or so folks who were on the boat, a good third of us were part of the club, and so knew one another, which made it a lot of fun for us all, I think. We also got to meet some new divers on the boat, which was also fun. Divers are a very friendly lot, in my experience. There's a sea anemone hiding down there. I was trying to get a view of. So you can't quite see. Oh, a great barracuda there briefly. And another. See a number of them floating about. Very shiny, long, and with a lot of teeth. Not dangerous though if you leave them alone, but certainly quite menacing looking. Find them often hanging around the boat, actually, so we often see them as we come up, or when we go down, but even more so when we come up. They tend to float about, hang around close to the boat for some reason, like the shade, I think. We come up and do a safety stop for 3 minutes, between 10 and 20 feet, so we often get to see them pretty close up as we are doing our surface interval there, because of them hanging out by the boat. Just so much beautiful coral all covering these rocks for who knows how long. Thousands of years. Still just so much life, I think you can see. 1200 PSI left, so at this point it's time to think about heading back, at least being close enough to the buoy. So keeping an eye on the orange line there you saw on the left. Great barracuda hovering around, but hopefully you can see just how many fish are floating about above the reef there, trying to capture that. There were thousands. Absolutely lovely dive. Close up of a brain coral there, and that little guy living on it. That is an enormous star coral next to that smaller brain coral. And there's an eel just down there on the right. I tried to attract the attention of my buddy Ken. You can hear me calling through the water and waving my light at him to grab his attention under the water so he could see this eel. A moray, a spotted moray. A type of eel. Also a lot of teeth, so definitely didn't want to get too close to him. I was wearing gloves, but I wouldn't want to be bitten by him. I was as close as I safely could there. He was nestled down amongst the corals, and so be very careful not to touch any of the corals. So that was as close as I could safely get. Joined by all those mysterious fish that I don't know what they are for some reason. Very pretty though. Watched him for a few minutes. Saw even more of these eels on the second day at Stetson Bank. There were lots of them. Alrighty, 1100 PSI, so time to start thinking about wandering back. You can see looking at the orange line right there, signaling to my buddy. Again, targeting 700 or so PSI to actually come up with. That's allowing for the safety stop of 3 minutes between 10 and 20 feet. Fascinated by the signs of the coral wars on this rock here. Looks like there's been many different corals vying for space on that rock over the millennia. So much coral. French angelfish just there on the left. Very beautiful fish. Oh, let's get him off. So, closing in on the end of the dive here. Heading back. Enjoying the coral on the way. Enjoying the coral wars. You can see the different corals butting up against one another, the different types, over these rocks here. The scars are where Some had lost the battle to another at some point. Following the handy-dandy and temporary orange line. There, so he's signalling to my buddy that we would head back that way now. Looking for the line. 1,000 psi left. Right on schedule. So much beauty on this coral line. Couldn't stop looking at it. So part of the aim of this dive, like I say, was to sort of learn it a little bit in preparation for the last dive of the day, the 5th dive on the same day, which was around 8 p.m. We got in the water as soon as it had got properly dark, having eaten some dinner in preparation for a night dive on this same spot, down this same buoy. And in fact, following that same orange line, the dive masters left that in place for us in between this dive and the night dive that we were going to go on later. And I have some video coming up of the night dive. Briefly, you can see it's a very, very different place at night. Pitch black for one thing. So learning our way around here once it was light was one of the goals of this dive. So yeah, there is the buoy, permanently moored, no anchors allowed. Last look around at the myriad of fish. Buoy permanently moored there, fixed to that concrete. More fish towards the surface, some 60 feet above. 40 minutes, 60 feet. Great on air. Head on up. And here's a short clip of the night dive. Much harder to video at night because the only light is from my torch, the same one, the flashlight I had, which is sufficiently bright, but you can see it's quite challenging conditions to video in because there's no natural light at all to help out here. It is midnight black, as you can see on the outside of the beam of my torch on the edges there. There really is, there's nothing. It is very, very dark. Which, for some divers the first time is quite exhilarating. You can just see a faint distance there, the flashlight of another dive pair. My buddy Ken is close by, and some blinking lights around. And you might also see, there's a sea anemone feeding. So we hope to see more life here at night. That's why we come back. But not much more in the way of video here. And a crab who was hiding under that anemone. And those were the highlights of the night dive, at least. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.